Hello there, and welcome to a rare, freshly squeezed. This is going to be a very interesting show. Hopefully, you all enjoy it. And now, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. Welcome back. We're going to be talking about all things Disneyland today, which we got quite a bit. A lot of Space Mountain news, some Star Wars news, some Toontown updates, and maybe a little bit of an update on this DVC lounge. We got a whole lot more to share with you. But first, I'm going to go ahead and start to my right. Oh, gee. Where can people find you?
You can find me right here on Orange Grove 55 on YouTube. You can also find me on the Twitters at Orange Grove 55. And I just want to say, Vash, it's an absolute honor and pleasure being on Freshly Squeezed. And since we're talking Tomorrowland,
fly me to the moon.
Exactly.
There we go.
Exactly. It's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And we also have with us George from Citrus Corner. George, where can people find you, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. Check out the brand new podcast I'm part of called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base with Orange Grove 55, with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Pay attention, it's Joe time.
That's it exactly. Okay, so the inspiration for this show actually came from George himself, so sir, I want to go ahead and thank you right off the bat right here. But this information comes to us via Scott Gustin, and this is his little update right here. Starting today, Disneyland is beginning to test the single rider line once again on Space Mountain. And we got dual confirmation here from Disneyland News Today as part of WDW News Today, but it's a very kind of interesting process in how this works. To give people an idea of an understanding of what's actually going on here, previously you went through the back way of Space Mountain, right? And they would have you go down a long corridor, and you would line up actually adjacent to the load and unload station. And then when a cast member looks your way, and then you get on, you get in the row in which they need you. This is quite different. There's a single rider queue that you join right at the entrance of the attraction. There's a merge point and several other things. You can actually go ahead and see this right here. It's pretty unorthodox. This comes from the Walker Chronicles on YouTube, who had a live stream just the other day, and this is kind of a fascinating thing because George, I think you'll agree, it's very rare that there is a merge point for a single rider queue. I'll let this video play over you just to to let you expand your thoughts as the viewers watch. But I think this was a very interesting move, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And this is what kind of drove me to the idea that I think we should cover this on the channel, because normally with any kind of, you would have three separate lines. You would have your regular standby line, you would have your single rider line, and then you would have your Fast Pass or Lightning Lane, Genie Plus, whatever they call it these days, who even knows, that you would then eventually, they would take so many guests through a point of the attraction, after so many that they would take for the Lightning Lane, Genie Plus, what have you. Then they would take so many for the standby, for which the single riders would then have their own line. And then after they would hit a certain point of a number, once you get down to the final loading area, they would then count how many people to put in the vehicles. Wherever there's an odd number, then they would pull one single rider to go with said party.
Yeah.
But with this particular case that they're trying out for Space Mountain is they are merging the single riders with the Lightning Lane guests before you even get down to the loading area. So that's kind of interesting because I know a lot of families, that been on these rides so many times, and they don't mind taking the single rider if they know that it will get them onto the ride quicker. But that now questions the thought that for the people who do want to stick with their parties and their families, how much more that standby line is going to get backed up when you are merging the single riders with the lightning lane.
Well, yeah, and it's also a little bit like you're paying for lightning lane. You're not paying for single rider. So I think it's also kind of a little messed up on the lightning lane side. Like I'm paying for this service to get through the line faster, and now you're funneling in single rider people mixed in with my line. Yeah. I don't know. I can see that being a problem from the lightning lane perspective as well.
It's very unorthodox. You don't usually merge in this way at this point right here. It just causes problems usually. Now, the way they're kind of getting around it is, they have a group go in, right? And they, odd number, lightning lane, single rider go. Group, odd, single rider. Lightning go. And so they kind of expect that group and how it's, as long as they're single file all the way down, that's going to maintain to the point where the attraction actually loads. And then there you go. But, it happens every once in a while where people get mixed up, they get reshuffled and so forth. I don't know how well that's going to be maintained in the long run. And then if it isn't maintained, aren't you left with an odd at a certain point, right?
Exactly.
So you have some problems there. Also, too, think about it. What if you had a couple, right? You had a couple go up into the single rider queue, get the, I guess they gave you a laminated ticket, by the way, it wasn't actually collected on day one. So there's a point in this live stream where she brings it out and says, oh, nobody collected it. I guess they were supposed to collect it at the merge point between standby and lightning lane, but as you'll see in this video, it just isn't collected. So that's an issue. But if you had a couple go up there, get the tickets, and go in when they're supposed to, well, you can very easily have the first person in that couple just wait at some point in the line, said, "Oh, I got separated from my party," and then get with them later in line. Now you're two.
Right.
It's up for exploitation.
Right, because
I'm sorry,
you're never gonna know after a certain point. The people that are the cast members that are done by the loading area, by that point, they are never going to know who was part of the lightning lane group and who was part of the single rider group. Right. They're all meshed together. And then you have the standby line that they're waiting to get through, but they have to, because if you're going to be paying, the lightning lane is going to be priority. So if the lightning lane is going to be priority, so are those single riders. So now you have standby literally on standby. It's almost like they became like the single rider units where it's like you're waiting. And there's already problems even before this. Look how backed up Radiator Springs gets. Radiator Springs Racers. I mean, can you imagine them doing this for that attraction?
Do you guys think this was done for like an olive branch? Like, for example, the people doing a single rider, more times than not, I'm not saying definitively all the time, but more times than not, it's probably going to be like a key holder that's going to be alone or willing to go alone. If you're traveling out of country or out of state, you're more than likely going to want to be with your group, right? So the vast majority of everyone doing the single rider is probably a local, probably a key holder. For the most part,
which is why this process is going to be easily exploited. Just to point that out there. Go ahead.
Exactly. No, 1,000%. That's exactly it. You're going to hack the system, right? They call it, and all that stuff, right? They're going to exploit it like crazy. But is this like an olive branch from Disney? Kind of like, hey, look, locals, we're giving this to you as sort of like to make amends a little. Not. I don't know, just like an optics thing. Look, it's been no secret that the key holders have not been happy lately. They've been through the ringer with the reservation system. Is this a move to kind of repair some of that, you think, or maybe not?
Now, it's interesting you say that, because I was going to talk about how this is a seismic shift in focus
Right.
for the Disneyland Resort, right? So I think it has something to do with that, OG. There's a little bit of a, an olive branch just to say, hey,
Right.
look, listen, here you go. Here's your precious single rider for all you MKs. But I think more importantly, though, I think the bigger thing that's actually happening here, not to say that that doesn't play a part in it,
Right.
it's a switch from pure profit to efficiency. Now, remember, when Genie Plus was actually announced, I got a little bit worried because it was like, I can see a perverse incentive where they prioritize profit over efficiency because they can sell the inefficiency back to you. I was like, oh no, that's not good, right? And we've heard allegations that's exactly what's going on here. This change, single rider is a small thing. It's a Space Mountain, it's in isolation, not the biggest deal in the world, but Space Mountain hasn't had a single rider for quite some time. Now it went away during the events of the Pandy and so forth. Came back for a little bit, and then subsequently was removed again because of Lightning Lane. And Lightning Lane, when that was introduced via Genie Plus, they got rid of all of the single riders initially, and they started slowly weaving them back in as capacity became a thing. But to implement it here, and in an attraction where it's kind of complicated to implement it, I think that actually says something. I think it's more about, hey, we're getting back to the old tenets, right? One of the 5 keys is efficiency. Let's get back to getting people on as many of them as we can, as possible, and run these rides like we're actually supposed to, which is a big shift, right? Because you can very easily say, hey, let's not do single rider at all. If they want single rider, they can buy it for $25 a day, right?
There you go.
Though, and I think that's key. George, what is your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think it is a positive step into the direction that, getting back to the good old days of Disney, if you will, that, to try to get as many people on the attractions on and off. Because I had mentioned this a time or two from my experience at Universal Orlando, that the Universal team members, they know how to get you on and off. They don't play a run. They buckle you in. Like, they don't wait for someone to say, okay, make sure your seatbelt is on. It's like, no, they'll do it for you. They're like a NASCAR team.
Yeah, exactly. Because in the end, that efficiency helps everybody, including the people that you're, charging $100 or whatever a day for their version of like Express Pass or whatever. So that I think that really kind of matters here. This implementation, however, leaves a little bit to be desired, I think.
Yeah. I don't mind the single rider coming back. It's just the execution of placing them with the Lightning Lane. Yeah, that I'm not too sure of.
Now, I had an idea of how to fix all of this. So, go ahead and share my screen just one more time.
I got you.
And this is, this is about roughly halfway into the standby queue as it's circling around the load unload area. You can see the rocket's orientation, and it gives an idea of where you're at. Here's what I would do just to solve this whole thing, because the using the old hallway to get you down there to the load unload station, it's a very tight hallway, it's very tight space, right? And they're now using that for ADA access. So when you got people with some wheelchairs coming through there, it can be very, very tight. I mean, it's almost impossible to navigate. So they had to do something, and I get that completely. Here's what I would do. It's very, very simple. Okay, you see this kind of corridor along this along the standby queue right now on the upper level. There's like a corridor right next to them.
Oh yeah, I see. Yeah, okay.
See
that
upper
right there?
Right.
Okay, I know that corridor for a fact leads to the exit of the attraction at a certain point. It just kind of wraps around, and then boom, you actually see this hallway as you're going down the long, narrow corridor to get to the unload and load station on the bottom. It just kind of circles around. It's a ramp. That's your single rider place right there. And what you can do is you can bifurcate the line up to that point. It's already bifurcated or split as you go down there. You just continue that split all the way up until this point, and then on one side you have your standby line. On the other side you have your single rider, and that's how you solve this whole thing. There's no merge point, and the cast member at the bottom just knows, okay, left is going to be, my regular line, right is going to be my single rider, and that's how you do it.
That makes way more sense. That's why it's like I'm surprised they didn't opt for something like that. I mean, that's crazy. Right?
I'm shocked. I'm honestly shocked. I don't know if it's because of the amount of cast members that you need to do this, but you still need to have a cast member facilitating the single rider line handouts or whatever, which doesn't quite make sense because it's adjacent to the individual lightning lane line, right? So why hand out a single rider tab at all? Like, nobody's gonna cross.
Right.
So that's a weird kind of thing. Anyway,
but it's like Disney has the right intentions, but it's like, again, they like to create more problematic issues that doesn't need to be when they have it right there in front of them, and it's like, come on, Disney. It's like
it is to be honest, it's bizarre. I'm not sure why they implemented it this way. It's an interesting strategy, but easily exploited. You got those laminated cards, which they're going to lose. I'm sure they're going to lose them, so you're going to have to print more and all this kind of stuff. Omit all of that. That's your access point right there, and that can be easily, I think easily implemented, but we'll see where everything goes. Okay, so switching up the subjects here, on the Space Mountain front, actually. Go ahead. Scott Gustin, along with this announcement that Single Rider was actually coming back, provided us this information. New Hyperspace Mountain returns to Disneyland Resort May 1st through June 4th, which is, the kind of May the 4th kind of era, right? Especially when they have Star Wars Celebration here. They're not having it here this year, but when they do, it serves that purpose and so forth. But I think the bigger announcement here than Hyperspace coming back is this one right here. Disneyland also says epic encounters, exciting flavors, and more will be revealed soon for Star Wars Month. No other details as of yet. They say guests will be able to touch down in a faraway galaxy with epic encounters, exciting flavors, and more as part of Star Wars Month. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I just have to say this is me being sarcastic, which I'm still glad that they're trying to do something for Tomorrowland, because Star Tours is, in the land respectively. But I just find it kind of ironic is they have a legitimate Star Wars land, and it's like it's left like without anything, which I hope maybe in time that including with the Star Wars Month, that Galaxy's Edge does get something incorporated with it. But if it doesn't, I just find it kind of sad that, again, it's like it's a perfectly good executed land aesthetically, to the eyes, but it's like, just get something in there that, what better way to utilize it for than Star Wars Month?
Oh no, exactly. Well, and that's the thing. It's definitely a Lucasfilm issue, almost certainly that the studio is telling them we want this timeline, and there's cracks being, it's starting to show some cracks. The timeline thing, we're seeing Mando and Grogu in there and stuff, so that's great. Eventually, I think it's gonna bust open and it's gonna have everything, but probably not until we get new leadership over at Lucasfilm. That's a whole nother ballgame.
And it's just they're so attached to timeline. It's very, very tragic. But epic encounters, I think this is very interesting, right? Yes. Even if it is at Tomorrowland, well, it's it's outside of, let's say, the timeline that's featured at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. We've seen massive success in terms of rolling out some characters that are kind of rare, like Din Djarin, for example, Grogu, Boba Fett, and some others. I think last year they may have introduced Captain Phasma. We just saw recently that Princess Leia demanded like a 3-hour line as far as Princess Night with R2-D2. Could we see those kind of things implemented in Tomorrowland away from the timeline restrictions of Galaxy's Edge? Is that possible, guys?
Yeah, I think the epic encounters line, that's exactly where my mind went. Was like they saw the energy around Princess Leia at Princess Night, and they're like, okay, how do we not capitalize on that, right? So I think we're going to see a lot of cool stuff with that. I think Leia might come back. I think that there might even be some other characters involved with this epic encounter that we've never seen before in the parks. I personally would love to see like a roaming Max Rebo band, something really fun, right?
Basically, everybody that's not in Galaxy's Edge at the moment is going to be over in Tomorrowland. So basically, it's going to be everybody except for Raylo.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I'm not against. And here's the thing too. I'm not against having the sequel trilogy represented. You know, I mean, I think that fans of that trilogy should absolutely have something for them. My issue is that it's just the fans of every other era don't get any love. It's like what's
it's not
going
the Star
on?
Wars for everybody, right?
Right. Exactly. So, but I'm very curious what they mean by epic encounters. And are also, look, we've seen new technology with meet and greets lately. We saw that cool little Tinkerbell thing. We saw the giant Hulk over in Avengers Campus. Are they going to bring something very unique like that to this equation? You know,
it would be cool to kind of look if you want to keep with the timeline or whatever. It would be cool to kind of get like a little Babu Frick animatronic, right? The guy from. And I was like, okay, well that'd be kind of cool. I do agree with you, OG. You could do a whole bunch of stuff even there. But hey, I know you have those. What is it? Was it Star Wars weekends out there, George? From Disney Hollywood Studios. Like I know you got an amazing costume roster. Come on, let's.
That was. I mean, Star Wars Weekends was so unique at Hollywood Studios when they added in the newer generation where you had Phasma coming in with the Stormtroopers, which was cool, but they would have their little show where they incorporated every character from every generation. You would have Vader, you would have Darth Maul, you would have the Stormtroopers, Leia, Luke.
Troopers.
Yes, like you would have everybody in every time zone possible for Star Wars, and no one ever paid attention to that. They were just focused on, hey, these are all characters that I grew up with, these are characters that I could relate to, and it's like we're celebrating the Lucasfilm brand of Star Wars. And then you would even have the Fab Five dressed in their favorite Star Wars characters. Like you had Mickey dressed up as Luke and Minnie as Leia. And so I thought you would have Goofy dressed as Darth Vader, I think. So I just thought it was like kind of like a cool thing that they would incorporate the Disney brand a little bit, intertwining it with the Star Wars brand just for the Star Wars weekends, which I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I absolutely agree. You can bust out quite a few meet and greets if you really wanted to get that Seasons of the Force background loop playing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Put up some banners, make it a real Star Wars month. Hey, even open up the bottom floor of the launch bay and get some guys in there, which we have a story about. But there's a lot of potential here. Whether or not they'll actually capitalize on it, I'm not quite sure. I really hope they do. But I
mean, there's tons of characters. C3, like, I mean, favorable ones. You know, you have C3PO, R2D2. Then you have like the not so, you know, the villains, if you will. You have Vader, you have Darth Maul, you have Sidious, you have Kathleen Kennedy. You know, like all those villains of the Star Wars universe.
There you go.
Kathleen Kennedy meet and greet. That is some potential. That is some potential. I like that. As well as part of this announcement, Scott Gustin says that the Space Mountain conversion to Hyperspace Mountain won't actually have any downtime for Space Mountain itself. So that's cool. But speaking of that launch bay right here, OG, go ahead and share my screen right here.
Yes.
Speaking of that launch bay, we were all kind of wondering in some of our chats, are they still going forward with the DVC lounge? I thought yes, because I think Dusty and a couple of other people have reiterated that yes, it's all going in and so forth, but there was some speculation that it wasn't. Well, this news comes to us via Ethan over there at Theme Park Wizard, which we love. We have massive respect for. He was going through the forums over there at WDW Magic and found this. There was a permit recently filed for signage as it relates to the DVC lounge, so yes, it is still coming in, folks. However, it's supposed to just take up the top of the the upper floor, not supposed to affect the bottom floor. And the bottom floor, from what I understand, is in the same condition that it was when it was last launch bay. So could we get an update to that? Could we get some meet and greets in there? That would be a great use of space. Fill up some of these dead quarters of Tomorrowland itself. I think you could actually do it. The question is, will they? I'm not sure.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, you know what I always say? When you want the most effectiveness, just trim the tip.
Well, it's interesting too because Jon Favreau recently did an interview where he was talking about bringing like the Mandalorian into the Disney parks in like by way of like an attraction, and
Like
he
a
also
Razor
talked a
Crest
lot.
attraction.
Exactly, a Razor Crest attraction, and he was talking about how he loves like the behind the scenes stuff too. He's really into that. For that bottom floor of Launch Bay. I'm not saying the Mando attraction. The Mando attraction belongs in Galaxy's Edge, a real attraction. But for the behind the scenes stuff, I think it'd be kind of cool to have like a Mandalorian experience where you go in there and they kind of showcase the various technologies, the volume, what they use for
separate the two. Like that behind the scenes. I like that too.
Right, and bring that into that lower level. It's a way to promote Mando. It's interesting too, and it actually fills that huge amount of space up a little bit instead of just sitting vacant forever. So I don't know. I think that could work.
I believe they had. Yeah, I believe they. It would take me a little while to find it. It was called the Mandalorian Experience, and the Mandalorian Experience was at Star Wars Celebration. I think it was this past one, if I'm not mistaken. And they had like a bunch of like Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett props and so forth, and costumes and all that kind of stuff all actually set up. I think the Naboo starfighter that Din Djarin actually uses as a transport right now was actually on display in that with a little baby Grogu sticking in it and waving. It was really, really cute. Bring those guys down here. Put them into Launch Bay. There's a great platform by which to showcase some of this stuff. So it's really kind of strange how they haven't actually done that with this space. Right. And I agree with you. You can actually set up a mini volume right there and get transported into a space, or maybe set up one like with a ship in the middle, and that way you can kind of get a perspective from inside out, or like a half of a ship, so you can kind of get your head in kind of like cockpit area and see how that works. I think it would be really kind of cool. These are all good ideas worth implementing, but they will never do because it's too obvious. So
it just makes too much sense, right? Yeah. It makes too much sense. And obviously these would be temporary kind of short-term stuff. Eventually we all hope that, they do something with that building, or at least that space. Maybe that will be part of any kind of Avatar thing. Maybe they bulldoze that building and it's the launch bay with the subs and Autopia, and it's this whole thing. Who knows? We never know. I kind of hope that's not the case though, because that encroaches a little too far into Tomorrowland if they do that. But I think for a short-term solution, something like that, like a behind the scenes of Mando, would be really, really fun. It's a popular franchise. It's one of the few things that Star Wars has done lately that has actually kind of been a hit. So you might as well capitalize on it.
Or you even have something similar what they have at Disney Springs going on right now. It goes on till July 21st. It was in the building with the NBA experience, which was previously the Disney Quest. It's the I forget the name of it, not Metaverse. It was the Meta something, but it's a Star Wars experience. So, and it's actually free. You could actually experience this at Disney Springs up until July 21st, where it's like a VR virtual type experience. I'm assuming where you can like check out different planets in the Star Wars universe and go on different missions and what have you. So, I mean, even if they were to do something like that, but put Mando as the forefront of that, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. There's creative things you can do with that space, and they should start utilizing it a little more in the meantime, absolutely.
I would absolutely agree here. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the top portion of it's going to be used as DVC lounge. Actually, I get it. I understand. You want a place where DVC members, whether staying on property, off property, can go, right? And it's kind of a special thing for their membership. But is it the best use of space actually in Disneyland? Look, we have a 3-acre Toontown, which we'll be getting to in a moment, which can't even find space for strollers. They have to use some of the grass they dedicated for play area stroller parking right now because space is at that much of a premium. Why not build an accessible lounge within your new DVC tower that you just built? It's a better use of space. Monorails right there. People can get on, get off. So it's a very kind of strange thing going on right now. But switching our focus just for a second right here to Toontown. You got that track switch drop right there for us, OJ?
Absolutely. I got a track switch right here.
Oh no! I must have hit that track switch!
And I actually got a follow-up to the track switch.
Go ahead.
Nothing can stop us now!
There we go.
And I would usually agree with Mickey, but maybe chipping paint can stop us just a little bit. So, well, it's now 2 days in, and we already have chipping paint. Where do we have it? Well, we have it below the Dreamer tree. As you can see here, this information comes to us via Marty Snyder, who has been a tremendous help in getting some of these things for the channel and so forth. So thank you to him. But he documented this very, very recently, and you can see we got some flaking or chipping paint there. And it gets even worse. Some of them are coming off in chunks, like you see here. If you've seen the vlogs that have like 4K cameras, you can actually see it in their vlogs if they ever get up onto it. This is rough here. Again,
2 days. That's bad.
Yeah, and Marty, we were talking actually privately in the DMs, and he was kind of speculating that like it's possible that because this whole land was kind of rushed out because of the rain. They delayed it, and it was down to the wire. He was speculating. I think he might be onto something. I don't know, but that it wasn't given enough time to kind of set.
Yeah,
and
there's a problem with the primary adhesion, I believe, is what he elaborated on.
Exactly, and he's probably right on that. They're gonna have to maybe work on these at night or shut this down for like a couple days to try to get this rectified. This isn't a good show. This isn't a good show. I mean, no matter how you cut it, slice or dice it, this looks really bad. And Disney can do better. Go ahead, Drew.
And I know that they should have. They were pressing for time. They already delayed it from March 8th to March 19th. But again, I would rather it open fully to what it was in another 2 weeks to make sure everything was set properly. Because, I mean, for this to come off within 2 days is obviously, it wasn't set properly, rushing, what have you. So, I mean, again, I would rather wait and get a complete, full product than to have it sooner and then this happens.
Well, and Dre, we did a video the other day on interactivity and Toontown and just interactivity in general within these parks. And one of my big complaints with interactivity, and whether it's Disney, whether it's Universal, whether it's Knott's, I don't care what park it is. The problem with interactivity is that it requires these companies to have a level of durability with these items that is,
you had to over-engineer them.
Over-engineer. That's a great way of putting it, Dre. And this is why I don't like interactivity in these parks for the most part, because most of the time they can't engineer it in a way where it lasts. There are some rare examples, like Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, which has done very well with that. But for the most part, we've seen this for 20, almost 30 years with Toontown, with things breaking because people are climbing all over them. It's like, this is why you don't do this in the first place, but here we are. And now they're stuck with it. So now they gotta follow through. So
to me though, this is paint. We've done paint before, especially as far as play areas are concerned. And WDI has been doing play areas in parks ever since I think the 1980s. So it's very strange how they didn't actually apply their lessons here and get this all kind of protected in a way where it wouldn't peel like this. Go ahead, George.
And honestly, I mean, I know Disney, I would hope would have the better sense to think of this too, that this is an area that's dedicated for young children and families. This is an area that young kids are playing, jumping around. And when you have a child that's a certain age, everything goes in their mouth.
Oh,
Everything.
That's a good point. That's a good
So
point.
Yeah.
when you have
Paint chips.
paint chips that are laying on the grass,
Yep.
that's not a good thing, especially for a child play area.
George, I'm so glad you brought that up. That actually never crossed my mind. I'm not a parent. Maybe that's why. You are the family man. but
Yeah,
that's a
no,
fantastic
it's a
point.
big deal. Good
It's a
point.
big deal. You don't want anyone getting sick. You're right. All it takes is one parent. They're watching their kid. They turn around for 5 seconds, and the kid puts the thing in their mouth or the paint in their mouth.
You could see pieces of those flakes every single time that I've actually seen these limbs. So it's a problem. Definitely needs to be addressed. WDI, what's going on with the finish work, guys? I mean, come on, let's get this going here. But I do have some good news to report on this front. Not that news, that's other news. But it is this one. This is what I meant to click on. Do apologize. Centennial Park is open. So I was looking at a live stream yesterday, about 10 a.m. or so, and they had the fountain completely working. Looks like all of the water elements were working, along with kids being able to play in the actual pool, or not in the actual pool, but in and amongst the fountain, right? As designed by the Imagineers, which is very, very hopeful. Let's see if we can actually keep it open here because, I think there was some concern here. This is your central feature of this. Of this land here. They touted it for years. It's the first thing you see when you get up, and you have to walk around all day if it's actually closed. So glad to see that this is working.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm really glad. What we were hearing, it was the pH levels, probably the case. They probably were able to get those levels the way they wanted them, and now we're all good. I do think that it's interesting with the whole like slip and fall liability risk factor with all these things, I do think that's an element of the equation here.
I do,
but I wonder it's interesting because we've seen Disney sort of lawyer proof their parks over the years, like with Tom Sawyer Island and what have you.
Correct.
I'm very curious in terms of the legality of it all, what the difference would necessarily be with some of these fountains and like maybe the pools at the Disneyland Resort. Is there a different sort of like, because that's just as much of a hazard as this, but we're seeing Disney being a lot more paranoid with this though, right? And that's why I'm like, what's going on with that? That's weird to me, I don't know.
I think it's I think a pool area would have like signage saying, hey, ground is slippery, don't run, all this kind of stuff, and you'd have lifeguards out there. You'd have a certain level of administration when it comes to that, or regulation, I should say, right? Whereas this is free, come in, come out as you go. Nobody's maybe necessarily expecting the chance to slip. There's no like spongy surface by which you can actually catch your fall on, that kind of thing. So I think that's what they're getting at right here. I think the flow might be reduced in order to reduce some of this this damping that we have in the surrounding area, but we will see.
And I do think too, Disney never really had to focus on what the guests were capable of when they walked into their parks, in the sense where guests today, just for clicks, for likes, for video, they will do odd things just to get attention. And I think that too could be where Disney could be thinking, oh, is someone going to be dumb enough to jump in the water? And I mean, you just had a guest recently at Epcot get into the Utopia areas with Miss Piggy and Kermit the Frog. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if these guests are that ballsy to do that, it's like I could see Disney's hesitation for that.
That's why Tokyo gets everything nice and we don't. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Because the Japanese are very respectful and they don't do stuff like that over there. And it's like you're absolutely right, George. It's this Instagram kind of clout chasing culture that we live in now. People are getting trespassed from these places because they're doing stupid shit in the parks and they're getting banned. Why would you do it? Why would you jeopardize? You will never be able to go back to these wonderful places again. All for what? For stupid TikTok?
Which then goes to show you they were never dedicated diehard Disney fans. They're just using Disney as a platform just to say, hey, look at me, look at us, what have you. You know, we're here for the clicks. That's all we are here for.
You get what you deserve. You know, you should, when you're at these parks, you're on private property, you follow the rules. If they tell you don't do this, you don't do this. You know, you got to follow these rules. Otherwise, you risk getting trespassed, and that's really crappy. That would suck, right? I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. The trade-off for the 10 minutes of clout on TikTok is not worth getting banned forever. Stupid.
Well said, folks. Well said. Well said. I do agree 100%. I wanted to end on a little bit of a high note, a really for real high note, not just not just the fountain coming back. I was going to mention this last time. I did not because, well, I just forgot. We've covered a lot of ground here in the last couple of days. But I want to go ahead and highlight this. This comes to us via Samuel Blank, and I have to give him full credit because, well, he said it. Here we go. Holy S, I just realized today was the first time in years every Disneyland ride-through attraction was operating. He goes on to say, it looks like every Disneyland attraction minus the Treehouse will be operating from March 24th to Sunday, April 2nd, then open, then on April, Big Thunder Mountain Railroad goes down on April 3rd. So that was a tweet right there. And when you think about it, yeah, every single attraction, ride-through attraction anyway, is actually operational for the first time since even before the events of the pandemic. This is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. And I think we're probably going to do a video on this. I don't want to get too into detail yet, but they are, speaking of rides going down, we haven't heard anything about Splash Mountain here at Disneyland yet. And not only have we not heard anything about it going down yet, they're actually starting to fix some of the stuff in the attraction, like the little owl and things like that. Like, what is going on? You're supposedly about to shut this thing down to retheme it to Tiana's Bayou Adventure, but you're fixing all this stuff. That's weird. And I only bring that up right now because it does kind of play into what Samuel was saying, where everything is up and running right now. But we'll definitely do a video on that Splash Mountain thing because there's something going on with that. I don't know. I'm not saying they're canceling the retheme, but maybe heavy delays. Maybe that's in the cards. I don't know.
I think it is. Hopefully we can keep everything open for the summer, George. I think you would
yes.
you would concur with that statement. Hopefully we can. But guys, I think this has been an amazing and incredible conversation here on Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. Oh, gee, where can they find you, good sir?
You could find me right here on Orange Grove 55 on YouTube, where we have fantastic shows like the one you're watching right now, Mr. Freshly Squeezed. We also have Story Geeks with Jay. We got our brother, Mr. Family Man 23, with his Walt Disney World show, Citrus Corner. We got the OG kind of flavor, right, with the standard classic Orange Grove 55, and we also have the Orange Nerd Show, which we will be having a really in-depth, crazy episode very, very soon on that, with the whole Victoria Alonso thing with Marvel. But with Orange Nerd, we go into all the nerdy stuff, Marvel, Star Wars, and even some executive C-suite stuff, right? And so look out for a new episode of that coming up. But Dre, I just want to thank you so much, brother. Amazing episode of Freshly Squeezed. Thank you, sir.
Oh, I do appreciate it, sir. George, real quickly, where can they find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on YouTube, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. Please check out the new podcast I'm part of called A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
Now, Dre, real quick before we close it out, I just want to give a special shout out to somebody who we all love dearly. He's been crushing it on the YouTube game. Theme Park Casual.
Theme Park Casual. Do you have your a casual drop?
I do. Let me go ahead and get that over to you. Let's see here. We got Casual right here.
I don't know. Fly Casual.
We love that guy. He is fantastic. He is family here on OG 55. So
and one more plug-in. Definitely check out our other good buddy, Bob Picard, who actually just started his YouTube channel doing some live at Disneyland at Knott's. And actually, Justin Scard actually mentions him during his walkthrough of Toontown. So definitely check him out as well.
Yeah, Justin.
Applause for these gentlemen. Applause for sure. They are absolutely fantastic. If you guys want to find me on Twitter, you can go and do so right down there at Vash Sky. Just go ahead and type it in, and it should pop up for, as Christine Wastelands McCarthy would say, for all the
robust
discussion right there. I think that's just about it. I think that just about wraps us up. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Click that like button. Share us your comments about what you feel about all of these updates right here. There's a lot of them. Do you have disagreements with the DVC Lounge, single rider, and how it's actually operated? Are you excited for Star Wars month? All those things. Go ahead and put them in the comments below. Make sure you hit that like button. Turn on the bell notifications to get updates for whenever we post a video. We've been posting a lot of them.
Yeah.
And
Smash those balls to the wall.
Balls
There
to
you
the
go.
walls, right? Let's see if I have it right here. Oh, no. There you go, right there.
There we go.
Thanks, guys.